I hope I didn't come across in my last video as some sort of hyper-Orthodox Herman. I want to do more in this video than just sort of throw a bone to my Roman Catholic friends. But I want to confess that the first time I felt that I was swimming in the liturgy, so to speak, was actually in the Roman Catholic Church in mid-nowhere when I was a teenager. And I continue to benefit from some Roman Catholic devotions, I guess is the word we use, and intellectuals. So, Roman Catholics, Roman Catholicism, and I didn't actually step foot into a Roman Catholic church, I guess until I was 13, but I was born in a Roman Catholic hospital. I didn't know but two Roman Catholics really as I was a child. One was Walter Shepherd, our family doctor for many years, and he was a very devout Roman Catholic and a wonderful doctor of the sort that if we still had, well, the whole medical profession would be a lot better. He not only made house calls, he came and stayed up all night when our and our next door neighbor's dogs were sick. They had been poisoned, and he was able to save the neighbor's dogs, although our dog succumbed. Our dog was smaller and probably had a higher dosage of the poison. And, you know, if he wasn't at home when my mother would call him about ailments that I and my brothers had, his wife knew nearly as much medicine as he did. Sandy had 11 children. And I think I'm going to talk about Shep, as most people called him, in another video, because he was a remarkable human being. The other Roman Catholic I knew was my Aunt Georgia, who would come every summer. She was my great-great-aunt, I guess. She was my great-grandmother's sister. And she would come every summer. And I can remember her and my great-grandmother sort of, who was a devout Southern Baptist, sort of refighting the 30 Years' War in their wicker rocking chairs. And I wish I had asked Georgia how she became a Roman Catholic in a family that seemed to be mostly Baptist, although it's also true that I don't know whether there were other members of my great-grandmother's family who were papists or not. Georgia went to Mass every Sunday, and or every morning, rather, you know, with her missal and her rosary. And it was interesting because her niece, my Aunt Nell, loved to drive and loved to take people places. And I guess at that time Georgia was in her 70s, and Nell never offered to give Georgia a ride to Blessed Sacrament because, well, she was a papist. But when I was in junior high, I guess, I had a girlfriend, friend who was a girl, and sometimes girlfriend, who converted to Roman Catholicism from Methodism. And I remember particularly the first time I ever went to Mass with her. She unfortunately later became a Lutheran. It was Christmas Eve, and it was just ethereal. Shep, the family doctor that I mentioned, I don't know what's so weird. Am I just this pale from being sick, or is this not much light today? Anyway, Shep was actually the choir director, something I didn't know, and the choir was in the loft over the narthex, and so the music of angels floated over the whole congregation. And of course, the Mass was still in Latin, and not just Latin of the Novus Ordo, which is still the Novus Ordo, even if it isn't Latin. But it was the what we call, I guess now, the Tridentine Mass. And of course, because I hadn't taken Latin yet, I didn't know meanings of many of the words except mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Good thing to keep in mind always. But I didn't have to know the words, because the drama, the actions of the priest and the deacon and the subdeacon and the acolytes and everyone else told a story that was as powerful as any words could be. Unfortunately, I guess because, well, everyone else in my family would have considered me hell-bent to go the wrong way, had I explored the Roman Catholic Church more at that time. I never really did. I did sometimes go and visit a nun at the local convent, the convent that had started the hospital. They had come to mid-nowhere during the Yellow Plague to nurse, because people were dying frequently. I'm not going to say dropping like flies. Sister Mary Omar, and from her I bought a statue of St. Francis, because even Baptists thought Francis was a saint for some reason. That plaster statue stayed with me for years, living atop my bookcase, and somewhere along the line it fell off and shattered. And I sometimes wonder if I had actually explored Roman Catholicism at that time, whether I might have become a Roman priest. And, you know, that's one of those useless what if Lincoln had lived things, but it is fascinating to think about, because, of course, the Roman Church at that time and the Roman Church at this time are so very, very different. The changes in the church are one of the things that McLuhan talks about in The Medium and the Light. He talks about bureaucracy as being irrelevant and completely useless in the electric age. But the bureaucracies don't know that they're dead, and we can see them in many places, in statehood and ecclesiology, the curia. All these different bureaucracies fighting to hold on to their authorities. And I can't help but be a little bit intrigued that it seems to me that the parts of the Roman Catholic Church which are growing and which seem to encourage the most devotion are the parts that are still hanging on to the traditions of the church that I visited that seemed ethereal, that produced a liturgy in which one could swim. What I meant to put in somewhere, and I somehow didn't, is that it seems to me that although we might have from time to time bad popes, bad kings, bad presidents, it is more the office that is important, perhaps, than the person sitting there right now. And that, in my humble opinion, the church is as well represented by people like Walter Shepard and my Aunt Georgia as it is by people who live in marble palaces and wear fancy clothes. So that said, you know, I want to go in two directions of this. One is that, alas, I did indeed have several times attended our Our Lady Star of the Sea Roman Catholic Church here at the edge of nowhere. And as the blunt instrument, so to speak, the greatly impoverished Mass that the Roman Catholics now practice, it just doesn't quite do it. Now, having said that, I must also admit that I did once upon a time have what I suppose is actually a real mystical experience. The only time I attended Blessed Sacrament back in mid-nowhere again, after they started using the Vatican II thing, which to me, because at that time I had begun studying at Swanee, it seemed like right two of the Book of Common Prayer of 1979 with worse music. I don't think that Shep ever embraced Michael Joncas and the like. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is sort of the for me, if you're watching this moving about and manipulating objects, you're gonna see, we all look at things as if we wish they were made for us. For me, I can understand the Orthodox Church's feeling that they have the fullness of the Church, the fullness of the teaching of the Church. I mean, in the Orthodox liturgy, we sing, "We have found the true faith," worshiping the undivided Trinity. And there's some of my friends say they're still fighting the battles of the 4th century, and it is, the Orthodox liturgy does hit pretty heavy on the Constantinopolitan Creed. But my friends in the Roman Catholic Church think that they have the fullness of the faith as well. And I would suggest that both of them have enough faith to certainly keep a miserable offender like me busy repenting all the days of his life. And I suspect that if there were a Latin Mass here at the edge of nowhere, I probably would be a happy Roman camper. Now, there are issues at which the two big chunks of the Church, branches of the Church, and even the Orthodox and the Romans agree that they are branches of the Church, at least officially, differ, and they tend to be above my pay grade. I can, for instance, on the Filioque, actually understand where both sides are coming from. I tend to kind of think it's nice not to make major changes without consulting the whole Church, but I suspect that happens a lot more than people want to admit. I had an interesting discussion last night at Vespers, excuse me, with a young recent convert to Orthodoxy. And I gotta say, after, I guess I've been going regularly to St. Herman's for about 12 weeks now. I don't feel any more Orthodox now than I did when I first stepped in the door. I mean, they're Orthodox, and I love the music, and the music's a lot better, particularly than I can do in the tin can. But I'm not finding any of my beliefs changed by going to catechism. And anyway, I had this conversation with this brilliant young man, but recent convert to Orthodoxy, and he is one of the few people I know who has read this book. And I asked him if he had ever studied any of Thomas Aquinas. Now, I almost studied Aquinas once, and the professor who was going to teach that class went back to Yale to teach there, and I've always found Aquinas kind of tedious. So, my friend and I talked about the mutual reasons that we both found Aquinas tedious, and then he said, "Well, have you read anything Orthodox this week?" And I said, "Well, yes, I have indeed been reading Gregory of Nyssa, and particularly Gregory of Nyssa kind of through the lens of this little book by John Bear, who is a Orthodox priest who teaches in Aberdeen, I think, has a marvelous translation of Gregory's study on what it is to be a human, essay on what it is to be a human. Well, the fascinating thing, of course, is both the Roman Church and the Eastern Church claim Gregory of Nyssa as a saint. I don't think the Orthodox Church considers the angelic doctor to be a saint. But one of the things that I found reading McLuhan is that McLuhan has an understanding of Thomas that's very different from mine. A sort of a mystical, symbolic way of reading Aquinas, and I don't know that I will start reading Aquinas because, gosh, that's, I probably won't live that long. But I think that I have something I can learn from the devout Roman Catholic scholar Marshall McLuhan. I do kind of wonder what Gregory of Nyssa would think about St. Gregory of Nyssa Episcopal Church in San Francisco. And of course, the Episcopalians claim Gregory as one of their own as well. And that, again and again, I just lament that we are willing to divide up the church in ways that just seem wrong. Yes, Michael excommunicated the legates from the Holy Father. I don't remember what the legates' name were, what pope was pope then. But excommunications were of people, not of a whole church. But we get our noses out of joint. And, there are some folks, Orthodox folks particularly, I think, who might watch this video and say, I am a no good, low-down ecumenist. Well, so be it. If Jesus could pray for the church to be one, even as he and the Father are one, as we say again and again in the Orthodox liturgy, that he and the Father are one, of one substance, with the Holy Spirit, undivided, etc., etc., then it seems that we should pray for the church to seek to overcome its sad divisions, and that doesn't need to be accepting the lowest common denominator. Rather, I think it should be in terms of exploring what are the highest common denominators. What are those things that the Eastern Church have kept that other parts of the church have not? What are those things that Rome has kept that perhaps have fallen out, even in the Patriarchy of Jerusalem? Well, I've been rambling as I tend to do, and I guess before I end this video, I should say that despite my having said how little regard I have for the post-Vatican II liturgy, or the post-1928 liturgy of the American Prayer Book, for instance, compared to what I think of as the real thing, I nevertheless know living saints, more or less. I mean, I don't get to make that decision exactly, do I? Can I just declare someone a saint? Moving about and manipulating objects. I know people who are, certainly to my appearances, living saints who worship in some parts of the church that other parts of the church consider anathema sit. Meanwhile, I will continue, I guess, unless they kick me out, to continue to worship at St. Herman's, because not only do I think that they have found the true faith, but they just have so much better music than I can sing at the tin can. And Well, I won't even go into some of the things that I find just really bizarre at some of the other churches. I'll just say that this is a very difficult time, something that McLuhan describes in considerable detail. And I need all the help I can get. Well, thank you for watching.